So probably some more will trickle in, but we will begin. Now, friends, I've started recording already, and I'm going to ask you all to turn off your phones if you have them. And we are going to try and make another step today as we deepen ourselves in our consecration service. The consecration of the human being. And we've been working through, we remember there's 4 steps in the consecration of the human being. And we worked with the gospel step, which recapitulates the preparation in the old initiation path. Last time we looked at the offering step. Because it's Christmas, it's okay to be late. And we saw last time, we imagined the offering in a very unique imagination called the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is a picture of the human being, friends. The human being. That which is truly alive in us. And that which is coming into us and longs to be decorated. Yes, your being, your eye, your earthly eye is not enough. It longs to be decorated. With what? Christ's life. The roses, the 3 white roses, the lights. What are the lights? The candle lights. Those are all the human beings that you gather into yourself as a community, in which, to which you see the Christ in them. Those are your candles.
That's so nice.
That's so nice. It's so hard, too. It's so hard to see through all the nonsense that arises out of you, projected onto you, and see through that to actually the Christ. You, in your true deepest self, long to be a community. You are a community. Because that is the image and likeness of Christ, who is the image and likeness of God. Do you remember that we were the image and likeness of God? I heard about it. One time. We were created in the image and likeness of God, and we fell away from that through the fall, so that we could become independent, free beings. But the image and likeness of God has come down anew. That's why we put a Christmas tree in our house. We want him to come into us. And the Christmas tree wouldn't really be complete unless it had gifts for others. So what is truly alive in you, when it really recognizes, when it offers itself for the life of the world and begins to be decorated with Christ's being, begins to gather up its self as a community, at the same time is offering gifts for the life of the world. And remember, this is what the godparent is there for. Every baptism needs a godparent, and the godparent is there to look and see in the growing child, what is your gift for the world? How are you going to join Christ in offering yourself for the life of someone other than you? Who is our godparent? watching for that. Asking each soul, do you love me? What will you offer to me? Or are you going to blame, dismiss, and accuse me? You see, human destiny is already fulfilled in as much as you can become an offering for the life of something other than you. It's already fulfilled in a seed form. Human destiny is fulfilled in as much as you are able to become an offering for the life of something other than you. Truly, not with resentment. Even if you can do a drop of that in this biography of yours, you will feel something of your true fulfillment. That's why when we age, when we get older and older, actually our deepest longing is that something of what we are done, have becomes a gift for someone else to grow and become what they're truly meant. We see that most in our children. That's because the true meaning of life is an image and likeness of Christ's life. He offered his being for the life of the world, not for himself. In love, gave everything that other beings can have new life. So that's our theme today. Our theme is the salvation. And we're going to see how far we get. The salvation is revealed in the third step of our consecration service. And we're going to begin with a quote, and then we're going to do our exercise. We're going to begin with the quote that we ended with last time. I don't know if any of you remember. This is from Rudolf Steiner, and it comes out of a volume 2 of his life and work by Peter Selg, page 263. One has to lose one's earthly self if one is to gain sight of one's true and real self. Anyone who fails to practice this self-sacrifice will never come close to their true I. One could say, the true I does not want to be sought if it is grasped or expected to appear and reveal itself. It will conceal itself when it is sought like that. For it can only be found in love. And love consists in giving one's own being to the other being. This is why we have to find our true self as if it were another being. And love consists in giving one's own being to the other being. This is why we have to find our true self, not just merely in here. We have to find our true self as if it were another being. You see, friends, this is the mission. This is the main mission of the movement for religious renewal. That our identity doesn't get lost merely here. Our identity power, our sense of self must, it's urgent for the evolution of humanity, that it grow not just from here, but it start to see its true self in Christ Jesus. That's why Rudolf Steiner said the very only purpose, the main purpose of your movement is that you recognize your true being at the altar, becoming present. It's not just Christ, a nice guy who's the Lord of Lords over there. It's not just good that we come to the act of consecration. It's not just following the rules. We're meant to find our true being, encounter our true being. Will we? Do we? Can we? That's the purpose of our movement. So that the I doesn't get locked in a sense of self that is illusory. The I must be saved, dear friends. The self. The only salvation for the I is to find its true being as if it were another being, the other being. So says Stein. So today our task, simple. To look at the transubstantiation and see how it reveals our true self. How he reveals our true self. Easy. But first we're going to do our little inner exercise. And we're going to do the one where you imagine the Christ coming close to you, and then he speaks these 4 sentences into your heart. We've done that before. The reason why we're going to do this one is because it culminates with, I am your true I. Very important. Your I, yourself, is an encounter. It's a relationship. And then when you start seeing Christ in other humans, what happens to yourself? Yourself starts to identify with others and the community. But it has to start with God. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And your neighbor as yourself. This puts new meaning there. Because God is the bearer of our true self. And then I can see him in my neighbor as myself. So, if you're on the computer, turn slightly away. Take a deep breath. Come into silence. And imagine the Christ Jesus in his resurrected form standing before you, coming close to you. And hear him speak these words. Let your soul be carried by my strong power. I am with you. I am in you. I am for you. I am your true I. Let your soul be carried by my strong power. I am with you. I am in you. I am for you. I am your true I. Good. Slowly come back. So friends, I feel inspired to also summarize the Advent and Christmas liturgy so that you can carry it through the holy nights. And the salvation, this true I, this one who carries our true being, the salvation is named, is the theme of both liturgies. The salvation is actually the theme. And in the Advent liturgy, if you pay close attention, this salvation, this being, comes into us like a child, like a baby. Did you not know that our movement is a second coming movement? It's all about the second coming. That's why in the Advent liturgy, you never hear about Mary or Joseph. Have you ever wondered why? Nothing about that. We are the new Mary. The second coming is the coming of the new child. And the child is described like this. God is speaking in you, become. That's the child. We are Mary, the new Mary. Imagine the Sistine Madonna. By the way, Patrick's going to give a wonderful contemplation tonight on the Sistine Madonna. Imagine the Mary holding the child. Mary is us, the new Mary, the second coming Mary. The child in us is this word that God is speaking in every soul. Become, he speaks. It doesn't say, only if you're a confessing Christian does God speak in you. It doesn't say only if you're, especially not if you're Muslim, or especially if you're not vaccinated. No, everyone. Period. Nothing is stronger than God. Become, it speaks. That's the first quality of the baby. There's a child in you. The salvation in you is first a word. God is speaking in you, saying, become. Now, how many different ways are there to become? When I was a teenager, lots. It describes, though, it says, this become that's speaking in you is also a picture. A picture of human becoming. When I was a teenager, I had a picture of what I wanted to become. You think that was in the image and likeness of Jesus Christ? No, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to be a cool dude with a really nice sports car and a beautiful girlfriend and like a lot of money. That was my picture of human becoming. Don't be embarrassed if you're still holding that picture. But it's not just any picture that God is speaking in you. It's a picture of human becoming in which God's becoming lies hidden. There's only one picture in which God's becoming lies hidden. What is that? Golgotha. That is the picture through which God transforms, becomes, evolves. Why? Because he's never gone through death before until then. Golgotha is being spoken in you like a baby. Is it still a baby? Yes, because it's not grown yet. It's not, I'm still thinking about being a cool dude, yeah? That picture has to grow. That's the salvation. It goes on. The salvation is then described. What is that picture doing in you? It's sheltering and redeeming errors full of mercy. That's a child in you. That's the Christ in you, speaking a picture of Golgotha, which is sheltering and redeeming your errors full of mercy. Can you join him? We've talked about that before. What does it mean to shelter your own errors? Well, first of all, stop whipping yourself to death. How does he shelter? Well, we're going to see that in the transubstantiation. He brings us our errors on the cross. That's karma. Thank the Lord for karma. This threefold salvation, God is in you, picturing himself in you, and working mercy in you. That's the child Christ in the new Mary, which is you. Where's Mary? We are Mary. And this becoming, this picturing of Golgotha, this mercy is just barely burgeoning, like a child, must grow into an adult. That then we find again now with a different lens in the Christmas liturgy. Anybody remember the Christmas liturgy? The third one. Christ, the creating Redeemer, the redeeming Creator Spirit of the Father ground of the world, has chosen the earthly body in which he would dwell. Interesting. For how long? Are we neo-Gnostics where we think that Christ just came into Jesus for a little bit and then left? Please say no. No. It says for all earthly cycles of time to come, he's chosen the earthly body. He's chosen Jesus to be in him for all of evolution, not separated from Jesus. He's chosen your body. It doesn't just say Jesus' body. He's in you for all earthly cycles of time to come. He's in the earth body for all cycles of time to come. He's not leaving. Behold, I'm with you always, even until the end of earth evolution. So that's him speaking in us. That's the salvation. That's the word. Become. He's not leaving. Nothing can separate you from that, ever. Nothing. He's chosen us. Nothing is more powerful than God. Then it goes on to save the human being from, see, the salvation. The salvation is there to save the human being from what? The deceiving false light. Who's the deceiving false light? Seems good, turns out not so good. Seems good, turns out not so good. Have you ever studied the biographies of lottery winners? seems good, turns out not so good. Most of them, their lives are ruined. Not all. Isn't that weird? I love seeing the faces like, what? How could winning $300 million be a bad thing? Most lottery winners' lives are ruined.
People who run the line.
Yeah. The point is, Lucifer light seems good, turns out not to be good. Yeah. So how does that apply? That light is now, the saving light is in me. How does the Advent liturgy describe that? The picture of Golgotha. Remember? That's a light. What is it in relationship to? Me wanting to be a cool dude. My girlfriend and a hot rod. That's the false light. Seems good, turns out not to be so good. It's okay. It's not condemnation time. The only way to save me from the false light is that the picture of the true light is in me somewhere. Do you see that? The salvation means I need to find my true being in the other that is in me, implanted as a picture, as a being. The light of Golgotha is the only way to counter Lucifer's attractive false light. The serpent must die on the cross. That's an alchemical picture. The serpent in the fairy tale, first laps up all the golden pieces. Wisdom for myself. But then the serpent becomes the bridge and the servant for the higher world, not for itself. That's another picture of how the serpent dies on the cross. But it goes on, the salvation. That salvation is related to the picture of man's becoming in which God's becoming lies hidden, the light in us. The next salvation that saves the human being from the deceiving false light. That's the first one we just did. The senses unworthy craving. Mercy. Mercy. What saves us from the senses unworthy craving? Well, a worthy craving. A worthy craving in the senses. That's what saves us. What's the worthy craving that we see with our senses when we come to the consecration of the human being? The body and blood of Christ that we see and eat with our senses.
Can you say the question?
What's the salvation from the senses unworthy craving? We know all about that. You go to the mall, you buy a bunch of stuff to quench your empty heart, and you come back and you feel more empty. You have a little fun. Yeah. You want to find real comfort. You go home, you eat a really tasty meal, you lay down on the couch, and the comfort lasts for a little while, but then you realize, I'm empty. Those are all unworthy of truly filling our being. It doesn't mean that we have to condemn them. We're not condemning them. This is our journey. We all do it. But what is the salvation in relationship to our unworthy craving? Worthy craving. What truly gives life that reveals itself in the senses? When I truly recognize the Christ in you with my senses, including my higher senses, That fulfills me deeply. When I take in the body and blood of Christ Jesus and receive his peace through my senses, the deepest longing of the human heart is to find God here. That's the comforter, the true comforter. So the salvation works with mercy in that picture. That's what's described in the Advent. Sheltering and redeeming errors, full of mercy and compassion in his own divine soul. We find our errors in the sense world, coming to us as our lives. That's karma. And we're saved from that when we start to see all that comes toward us as a cross, as an opportunity to commune with God more. Unworthy craving means I wish it would all go away. I wish that I had my life perfect with everything that I possibly want. The salvation from that is to start seeing in my life and everything that I encounter and all the annoying people, opportunity to get closer to Christ. That's because he's sheltering and redeeming our errors, our life, our karma. So, the salvation. Yes, everything has to do with salvation. You see, this is another secret. I hope you can see that. I wrote the salvation there. This is another secret of our movement, is that we're called to redeem these burdened words. Is salvation not burdened with lots of baggage? Remember last time when we talked about participatory salvation or substitutional salvation? Both are real, but we're just barely learning about participatory salvation. How do we join in this listening for the become, in this uniting and finding the picture of Golgotha as our true being, in starting to discover his true mercy working in our lives, in finding the medicine for the false light as his light, in finding the medicine for our unworthy craving, in finding the true longing of our senses, to commune with God. This is the salvation. So we can say it, he's speaking in us. This is a kind of this threefold microcosm of the salvation. Speaking in us, picturing himself in us, or he is the light in us. That's another way to say that. His picture, God's becoming, human becoming, in which God's becoming lies hidden. The altar picture. That's why the altar painting is the only picture in the chapel. That's it. That's in your heart, friends. That's the true light. And finally, how else is God working in you? How else is the salvation working in you? Mercy. Mercy. Described as sheltering and redeeming our errors. Friends, we can also learn to shelter and redeem our errors with Christ. And once we learn that, we can start to shelter and redeem other people's errors. That's called becoming priestly. Becoming priestly. You see, most of the time, most of us are just concerned with our own problems. But the priestly one in you can grow in such a way that you can also learn to shelter and redeem other errors than your own. You see, you never get away from it. It just gets richer the more you grow. See, sometimes we think with the false light, we think there'll be a time when I've transcended all pain and suffering and I will achieve enlightenment. Have you ever thought that? No, you're all. Yes, we're burdened by false pictures of enlightenment. Christ is not free from pain. He's chosen. If you choose to become a priest, you choose to take on a lot of people's pain. Do you want to become a priest? Is that a good sales pitch for the seminary? Anyone? It's true. Just ask Susan. She's been a priest for 40 years. But Christ's joy is deeper than his pain. And the fountain of joy comes out of giving himself in that way to the error. It's called love. Look at your children. Do they not make errors? Oh, yes, says Irene. Are they not making errors? Are you trying to get away from them? No, you're suffering with them, actually. You're taking them up. You're trying to, whatever you can do to help them, you're probably doing. And you've probably tried to fix them. And how did that go? If Christ wanted to fix you right now, don't you think he would do it? That would be cruel if he didn't. He's loving you. Cruel, mean. If I'm standing here and I could fix you and I want to fix you and I have the power to fix you and I don't, it's mean. But he doesn't want to, because that wouldn't help you become what you're meant to become. He's loving you, bearing you. Remember that story about the judge in North Carolina, who judge says, okay, you need 1 night in prison. Remember this story? Our normal picture of God would say, he just is aloof. God is aloof, judges you, and you have to serve the punishment. Bad. Get better. Do better. But no, the judge says, I'm joining you in your consequence, in your pain. I'm not going to fix you either. I'm joining you. He goes into the cell. He serves the sentence with him. And the judge comes out new. Have I told this story before? I get confused. Okay. He comes out new. He's a different human, transformed through the deep conversation with the prisoner. The prisoner comes out new. Why? Because they love someone new and have been changed by the other. Your true self is not in you. It must be found in the other. The salvation speaking in you become. picturing itself in you. Not the false light, that light. Sheltering and redeeming your errors, full of mercy. Saving you from the senses' unworthy craving. Now, how can we see this in the transubstantiation, in the illumination? Oh man, it's already 11:15. Wait, when do we end? Oh yeah, okay, 15 minutes to do the whole transubstantiation. No, we're not going to make it. But we can start. Remember, friends, if we imagine this salvation as a sun, and it's shining in your heart, remember there's 4 steps in the process of each of these sections. So we can imagine the rays of this salvation. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 3 and 3. I'm just so Trinitarian. I just can't. 4. Yeah? Remember, there's 4 steps in each section. Yeah. First, we have the revelation. Remember, the gospel is a revelation. It's like a revelation of Christ. Then there's the offering. We give something. So first you could say, in the gospel, Christ gives himself in the form of a picture. Then we respond and we give ourselves in the form of offering. Then Christ fully reveals himself, becomes present in the illumination or transubstantiation. And finally, we commune with that full revelation. We unify ourselves with it. And we can see that in the canon section, in the transubstantiation. Those 4 steps. First, when the priest does this, may he be in us. I'm just going to touch on them briefly so we can have a bit of a full picture. That's the gospel. That's Christ revealing. Who is this being? What does he do? Makes hearts to be at peace, strengthens wills, unites human beings. Feel with blessing. Remember that part in the service? The priest puts their hands like this. The Christ who has become present. Feel our offering. Feel us, Christ. That's the offering. That's we then ask the Father to receive us. Then remember when the priest kneels, there's a whole part there that is Christ's words. For the first time in the whole service, Christ himself is speaking and kneeling and thanking the Father and uniting his soul therewith. That's the full revelation of him with us now. That's the picture, the salvation that's going to battle the false light. And then finally, the communion, the union part at the end, we'll see. Well, we'll see. We're probably not going to get there today, but next time, after the Holy Mass. So, let's take our steps. Maybe we'll make it through the first 2. And what I want to do is also try to see the salvation elements that we've pulled out of the Advent and Christmas liturgies. How do they show up in this most holy part of our service? We begin with our prayer. This whole service is a prayer. Our prayer, reach unto you, O ground of the world. Praying to the Father, ground of the world. Through Jesus Christ. Yeah? Through Jesus Christ. Our prayer cannot reach the Father unless it's through Jesus Christ. He's there. He's present. Remember what I said before. How long will Christ be in Jesus' body? It says in our liturgy, all cycles of time to come. It's not just, Jesus is not just a pit stop for Christ. He unites with the human being. Jesus is the human being, the image and likeness of God that was in the very beginning. Come down. Your Son, our Lord. Oh, you can already see there a little bit of the true light. We're recognizing the true light. Now, your blessing ray out over this pure offering. Our prayer, our being. Receive it from our pure thinking, our loving heart, our willing devotion. This is recapitulating the preparation for the revelation of the gospel. Now here comes the gospel. Priest does that. What does that gesture do if you feel into it? Remember, you're meant to be feeling into what's happening at the altar. Radiating, opening, including, standing before. Imagine if Christ Jesus, which he becomes present right there, apprehending
Veil of the soul lifting.
the veil of the soul lifting. Well, it's already been lifted. Or you could say it's revealing in maybe lifting. Spread, yeah, that you're talking about the Advent epistle, but this is like he's appearing now. He is now fully here. And there we say, may he be in us. What does he do? How is he speaking in us? How is his light working in us? He who makes hearts to be at peace strengthens wills to do what? Why do you need a strong will? So you can become a super cool dude with a hot rod and a girlfriend? Yeah. To have mercy on the errors that arise in your own soul and in others. You need a strong will. You see that? It reverses that. Normally, I think I need a strong will to get what I want and what I need in the world. This is a reversed will. To work with mercy. How do you shelter the errors of your children? Are you doing that? That's called a will that is reversed. Yeah? It's not fixing, it's bearing, revealing, loving, presencing. You see, Steiner says God gave his power to Arama and his wisdom to Lucifer. What did he retain for himself? Love. that almost makes me regret. What? How could you be so risky? Monica, one of our, well, I shouldn't reveal, but anyway, our dear Monica said to me, that just sounds so risky. I'm with you, Mom. That's like scary. What? He gave his power away? Who's controlling the world? Well, turns out Arama. Didn't you notice? Well, that's meant to be. How can we join Christ in loving that? What? If you feel resistance to the cross, that's okay. You know, the road is wide and big that says you can transcend all of the pain and problems. Who doesn't want that? Nate, show me one person who does not want to be free of pain, including myself. Totally. That's easy. The cross is different, but it's hiding a well of joy and love that is he who makes hearts to be at peace with this world. Strengthens wills for the mercy work in this world. The world that is run by Arama. Unites human beings. So when he's speaking in us, when he's lighting in us, it's a call to be united. What are we experiencing now? Division. Everywhere. That's Arama's work. Yeah. So he's a medicine. He's a light in that darkness. What does it mean to truly be united with humans? There's only one being that unites humankind, it says here. This is what he's doing. How do I unite with you? Well, I can't fix you. So, because sometimes we think if I'm going to be united with you, you've got to be the way I want you to be so that I can feel good about being united with you. You've got to think what I think. Yeah. You've got to believe what I believe. I'm working with a wonderful couple right now, just an incredible couple. And they're just so terribly abusive to each other. Terribly abusive. You must believe what I believe if we're to be together. You must. Each of them to the same. You are such an abusive idiot. Each of them saying the same thing, suffering the same thing. Perfect marriage. Yeah. This is so often what I find, that the same pain is being suffered by each with a different face. What is it that unites? So it goes on. So grant he unity. Grant. So grant he unity to those who confess him. What does that mean? So are you all locked up now in this word confession? Oh, my sins, my sins. No, confession means to recognize, to see him. So, friends, let's be careful with this. So grant he unity. What does that mean? First of all, unity is a gift. You don't produce it. But you have to do something. To those who confess him, recognize him. What's the only way, through COVID, the only way that I was able to feel the gift of unity with my wife was to confess finally, recognize finally the Christ in her coming out of her mouth, Christed word. Then unity was granted. You know what the number one sickness of a marriage is? Yep. To hold each other in contempt. You are this, and you're never going to change. That's the surefire way to cultivate division. Or your friend, you are this, and you're always going to be that. That's your confession. That's what you're recognizing. Unity only comes when we recognize the Christ. And he gives it to you. It's just more hidden in some, Kevin says it's very hidden in some people. Yes, actually in all of us. And the more you live with someone, the more it gets hidden. Because familiarity breeds contempt. To Christ. Oh, there she goes again. Ever heard of that? So it becomes, especially if the ones we're closest to in love, it becomes the hardest work to wrest ourselves free from our own sin, which is holding the other in contempt, and begin to confess Christ. Christ lives in every soul. Remember, the salvation is in you. It's already there. But it's hard to find sometimes. It's hard for you to find. God sees it. So grant he unity. So this is now the gospel of Christ revealing itself in a full way right now. So grant he unity to those who confess him. He's giving us tools. He's giving us tools for the war of all against all. He's saying, my grace is available. Just start to see me in others. And who is he? Remember our first mystery? This quote from Rudolf Steiner? He is the bearer of our true eye. I am your true eye. So if I dismiss my wife as the ultimate adversary, tempted. I got a chuckle from Kevin. Then I dismiss myself. Why? Because your true self is in the other, in Christ. If I dismiss everyone because I want to be me.
I want to be me.
Me. I'm right. You're all wrong. Then I dismiss myself. And I don't even know. I'm trapped in the false light. It goes on. May he grant it. Oh, jeez. This is too much fun. I get carried away. Yeah. So let me just finish here with this is the end of the gospel part of the transubstantiation. And then we'll carry on next time. Because the transubstantiation is worth spending a lot of time on. Unlike the other parts. No. May he grant it to all. What is it? Remember, so grant he unity to those who confess him. May he grant it unity to all. So it's not exclusive here. To all who look towards him and would follow him. Who's that? Everyone. That's everyone who has been at any time moved with compassion toward another human. That's towards him and would follow him. The Christ impulse without name. That's love, hope, faith, long suffering. He's working not just in those who confess him, but everyone as an impulse that's moving towards him. On Monday, usually I take Mondays off, and I went to the Kasemi's house, who's this Afghan family that we have brought in, refugees that were being persecuted for 20 years, trapped in Pakistan, that we brought in. And I went to visit them, and I brought them some checks that they're going to need. And then they asked me, do you want to stay for tea? Now, there's only one of them. There's 6 of them. There's only one of them that could speak broken English. And I had this impulse arise in me. No, I want to go. I got things to do. And I don't want to sit here and not be able to communicate with any of you and just stare at you. So, okay, I have to sit here and drink the tea and eat the cookies. And then my wife calls and says, you need to take them to the bed. This is my day off. So I gather them up. We all go to the bed. And gradually, long story short, after we come home, this little boy and his mother, I just love them. I don't know why. Just sweet. Just being with them, offering my time, even begrudgingly, looking towards, right? Starts to build, love starts to happen. Now I'm thinking, when are we going for dinner? You see, unity. It's a gift. But your soul has to be moving towards him. And something in you would follow him. And maybe even something can confess him. Yeah? Good. Okay, that's what I wanted to share today. After Christmas, 1 month from now, we will do a mini recap and then dive right back into the transubstantiation. So I hope you can join us. We have 20 minutes now for questions, comments, thoughts. Oh, Becky has a question. And then, Becky, go ahead.
Well, I just thought it was amazing, this risk factor, because I wonder what the gods must have thought when Michael also allowed the cosmic wisdom to come down to humanity. I'm sure they were up there going, "You're giving it to humanity? Like, what are you thinking? It's the cosmic intelligence." So I feel like we've been given so much from one perspective that we've been entrusted, and it's kind of incredible. But this risk factor is a true thought from another perspective, and trusting us to give it back. Amazing.
Beautiful. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Becky, for that emphasis and that thought. So I've got Joanna and then Regina, but I do want to just say one thing in response to that comment. The adversary can be described like this: the one who doesn't believe in the human being. Go read the book of Job. The adversary comes to God and says, I don't think this human being is quite all that you've cracked him up to be. You have this deep love for this human being, but I bet you that they're not that cool. And God says, really? I believe in the human being. Go ahead. Try your best. What happens to Job? Massive trials. Illnesses of every kind. His children die, all of them. It's gruesome, friends. This is not messing around, the Bible. All at the end, he remains faithful. And he doesn't just remain, but his faith is new and strengthened through that. And then God restores even more than he ever had. This is a microcosmic picture of the human being now. The only difference is that God is suffering with us because of the cross. Job is an Old Testament story. God hadn't yet incarnated. You see, God joined Job in the New Testament. Suffered everything with him. In fact, the Father was already suffering everything in the book story of Job. We just don't know it because we don't see Christ yet. Until we see Christ, we don't know the Father. That's just Yahweh. Anyway, that's a whole nother picture. Okay. Next, Joanna, and then Regina.
Okay, Jonah, I just want to tell you, not that I am anyone to bestow judgment, but the deepening of your life with Christ in just the times that I have seen you over the last few years is so remarkable. And, your humanity, showing us the wounded priest, the wounded human being, not afraid to tell us about your errors or your resentments, and the love for the service and the love for what you do is beautiful. Thank you.
Amen. That's a wonderful gift. Thank you for that encouragement. Whew. Well, it's a joy. It is a joy for me. So thank you for saying that. Okay, Regina.
Well, it's a hard one to follow.
But don't worry.
But it does follow
With that in mind, not forgetting what was just said, but also in line of what Becky said, I had an experience when you mentioned that before, and of course I'd heard it before. God gave power to Ahriman and wisdom to Lucifer. But what I felt too, or what I thought, and I think that fits with you, is just how God must trust love. And maybe trust is one word, but must know that it is so much more stronger and that it's even more wise. I mean, more wisdom, more power to love and to know and to believe and to live and to walk that all the time. Is that, I mean, that's also very powerful. And that's what we see in you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's kind. I'm so grateful for that, Regina, because it echoes Corinthians 13. If you haven't read that or lived with that, this hymn to love from Paul, it's very worthwhile because it also inspires and brings to mind that there's a hidden power in love. There's a hidden wisdom in love that's actually more wise and more powerful, as you said, than the outer power and outer wisdom that he's given away. This is extremely important. There's also, of course, an outer love, right? The kind of illusory love that we all know. We don't have to condemn it. It's just not the real love. It's got seeds of real love in it. So it's not that, and we can see that also in the culmination of the book of Revelation, that the true power of love starts to actually be powerful in the culmination of earth evolution. Casting down Babylon, casting down the adversary. It's just God's power that has gone through the cross and the resurrection. And is, what's the image there? Washed itself in the blood of the Lamb. You see that interesting thing? Power itself actually has to go through death and resurrection. Wisdom itself has to go through death and resurrection. Love itself is death and resurrection.
Yeah, and in God so loved the world that he gave his son. Is that what you were just describing?
Exactly.
Anyway.
What? I mean, who gives their child for sacrifice for the life of another? What? Abraham? No, not even him. Not only that, but Christ took on the consequences of all the sin of humanity. He drank the cup of wrath. God himself, in the form of Christ Jesus, gave himself to all of our sin so that we could become new. Imagine if you took up all of your children's sins. In a way, you do a little bit. That's why the picture of the parent is similar, because you can't escape them. But imagine if you freely chose to take them all up and die with them for the life of something other than you. I mean, God's love is a deep, unfathomable mystery. Yeah. Good. Very nice, Regina. I'm so grateful for that. Okay, we have a few more minutes. I didn't see who rose their hand first. Irene, and then ladies first, and then Christopher.
Recognizing how powerful life has come to me recently, especially when I recognized that I used to see a lot of people who suffering and constantly asking and wondering if God so powerful, why are we suffering? Why is there so much in the world?
Yeah.
Well, I turned that around to hope. Because that resistance and that wondering and that asking. I used to see it as, come on.
Believe in God.
Believe in God. Just
right.
Can't you just see?
Beautiful. I love that, Irene. I'm going to just try to re-say what you said so our listeners can hear. You see Mary in Advent, Mary in the Annunciation. First, Gabriel appears to her, speaks to her, and speaks a mystery to her. You're going to be the bearer of God. And it says she was in wonderment or consternation or contemplation. She didn't understand. Yeah? She didn't get it. What? So the Mary soul is that which starts to wonder and think and contemplate with consternation about the mysteries of God. So Irene says, it used to be that when someone close to me said, I don't believe in God because how could a good God allow so much suffering? She used to think that's a problem and a tragedy with that person because they don't believe in God. Now she's starting to think that's actually hope in them because they're thinking about with consternation, how is this possible that a good God allows such suffering? That's not just the positivity exercise. That's seeing the divinity in another. Mary. That's seeing Mary with the child Christ in the other. You see, I could condemn you because you're an atheist. Or I could rest myself free from the load of sin in my own heart and in thinking and feeling, join with Christ. Where is he? Can I find even the faintest footprint of his being in you? Thank you, Aaron. Christopher.
Recently, I've been in a lot of pain. My life mission is always to be good, and that's being the bride for you. And one of the lines today is unity. Became alive in the sense that only by softening myself that I actually begin to achieve unity. So the image that I had of myself as giver or whatever sort of picture I've been holding, I can only achieve unity by softening and uniting with the other. And so that was a huge gift.
Yeah. Beautiful. Christopher, correct me if I'm wrong, but Christopher described a kind of inner shift in his soul that came about through the deepening of this line. So grant he unity to those who confess him. And he had experienced his connection with human beings as a giver of health, as a giver of help medically. And now through your destiny, that role has been blocked by the officials. But now what I hear you saying is that this picture of how can I open up and find the Christ in my life and in the others will help me find unity in a new way. The old way was with my role. But there's a new, and he described that his being has to soften. That's such an interesting picture. Was that fair? Because you see, friends, the Christian mystics, the Christian saints, do you know what the greatest problem is for the human being? The hardened soul, the hardened heart. And that's not to say that we all have hardened hearts. That's why it says in the Old Testament, God's going to give us a new heart. We actually all have stones for hearts. So it's not a problem to encounter our hardness. But what is it that can be granted to us, this unity, which is actually a new heart, when I start to open up and let go and dissolve what's blocking? And often that's just blame. I'm pissed because this happened. You took this away from me. You have made my life miserable. You spouse of mine. You government of mine. You annoying person at my congregation of mine. Yeah. It's only ultimately hurting you. It's blocking your own being from unity that's waiting to be gifted to you. If you start to see him in what's coming towards you. And him means always a death and resurrection, a letting go of something old and being willing to be born as something new. So often our hardness just has to do with, I don't want to let go of what I've had. This is not a condemnation. This is just descriptive of what the human being is going through always right now, myself included. So the granted unity is a circumcised heart, a new heart. Yeah? That's what it speaks about in the Old Testament. This is a promise that God made. I will give you a circumcised heart, a new heart. And my name will be written on it. Not the name of the beast who has a death wound and refuses to die. The name of God that has a death wound and is bleeding out for the life of the world. That's the Lamb. Willing to die and be reborn. Yeah. So maybe we can end with that picture as we move into the Holy Nights. And we can, friends, I would just have to say, if you can, find a living question that you can bring into the Holy Nights. Find something very important wherever you're at that you can ask God about. The Holy Nights are an absolute wellspring of life. The spiritual world and Christ is so close, so salient during these 12 days. So I highly recommend take something with you and then open your hearts to the grace that can come so that we can have a new heart. Yeah. All right. I guess we should say the Lord's Prayer in our last minute. 1 minute to 12. Our Father in the heavens, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, as above in the heavens, so also on the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Thank you, friends. Blessings on your Christmas. See you next year.